The sermon this morning is titled Evolution, Fact or Fiction. And when we consider the passage which was just read for us, the Bible is very clear that in a day's time, a normal day's time, God created all the land animals that we know. And this is the opposite of what evolution teaches us. Evolutionists believe that animals came into existence over a period of millions of years, and that one kind of animal slowly changes into another kind of animal. And these two points of view, they cannot be brought together. They cannot be harmonized. Again, they are polar opposites. The Bible teaches us that God created the animals. He created each animal after its kind. And those animals produce after their kind. And when we look at nature, that's what we observe. We see, cattle giving birth to cattle, and so on and so forth with really all animals. And so these two views of the world are polar opposites. They cannot be brought together. And there are Christians who try to kind of force these two worldviews together, these two different views of the world together, and it simply cannot be done. So we must choose, ultimately, which one we are going to believe. And if you recall, Jesus says you can't serve two masters. Ultimately, you're going to believe one or the other. We're either going to believe in creation or evolution. And so why should we study evolution? Should we even consider this and think about this as Christians today? And, it's not the most essential topic in the world, but I think it is something worthy of our consideration. In our culture, as American citizens living today, I believe atheism, and especially evolution, is usually tied into atheism. These atheism and evolution are seen as the antithesis to Christianity. And, either you're an atheist and you believe in evolution and you kind of believe in, a lot of people kind of characterize that as you're going to be academic and well-educated, or you're like a hillbilly Christian. It's going to be one or the other, which I think is kind of a false way of looking at Christianity. Evolution also, to one degree or another, is taught in our public school system. And so if we send our kids to public school, it's usually something that's going to come up. It's something that they're definitely going to be taught, again, to one degree or another. And it's not, I don't think it's uncommon to hear about someone who was once a Christian, but then for one reason or another fell from the faith and started pursuing these other ideas about the world, turning to evolution and atheism. And so I think these are just a few reasons why this is an important topic and something that we should at least consider every once in a while. If we know some of the basic claims and ideas of evolution, then we can better speak to people about it, people who believe in it. We can better educate ourselves so we can talk to our children in better detail about it. Believing in evolution is not a matter of the Christian religion versus science. And I want to make that very clear because a lot of people want to kind of pit those two things, like either you have to believe in science or you have to believe in Christianity, but it can't be both. And that simply is not true. I believe we should believe in real, genuine science. Science is a good thing. But believing in evolution is not a matter of Christianity versus science. It's a matter of a worldly philosophy versus science. Because when you really look at evolution, it is not scientific. It is a philosophy. And when I talk about evolution, I'll speak about this a little bit more detail, but I'm talking about what people commonly call macroevolution, the idea that a single-celled organism over, again, millions of years, hundreds of thousands of years, slowly evolved into like a worm, and then that worm evolved into a fish, and that fish over millions of years evolved into an amphibian, which evolved into a lizard, and then a mammal, and then other bigger animals like apes, and eventually, we're here because of that single-celled organism. That is not scientific. I do understand, part of science is coming up with theories, coming up with different hypotheses, You're thinking outside the box, thinking about our natural world. And that's great, that's wonderful. But also part of science is the scientific method, where you take those theories, you take those hypotheses that you form, and you test them, you prove them. And then once you prove them, you try to reproduce what you've done and demonstrate that to other people. And that's how a hypothesis eventually becomes a scientific law, something that's been tested, something that's been proven to be true, and that can be universally shown. Hey, this is something we see in nature. This is true across the board. And the idea that life spontaneously generated, that first single-celled organism multiplied and evolved into all the living creatures that we see today, is not science. It is, at its very best, it's just that theory. It's just a hypothesis. Evolution is not an empirical fact. It's something that a person must hope in. It's something that people believe in, that people really put blind faith in. And no man has ever observed a Big Bang, for example, or any other kind of chaotic event which produced the order that we see in the universe. No man has ever observed an organism coming to life all on its own. No man has ever observed one kind of animal changing into a different kind of animal. But people choose to believe these things. And they choose to pass it off as if it were scientific fact, when, again, it's not. A person cannot test, they cannot prove, nor can they demonstrate that chaos and chance created all the life that we know today over a period of millions of years. Now, the Apostle Peter gives us this charge. In 1 Peter 3:15, sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you, with meekness and fear. And so we are encouraged and we are exhorted to, give an answer to people when they come and they ask us about our faith and why we have hope in Jesus Christ. And again, I believe it's pretty typical. It's a rather common thing today. People might ask, well, why do you believe in the Bible? Why don't you believe in evolution? And why don't you believe in some of the things which are popular today? And so my goal this morning is to share with you some things, various claims made about evolution, and hopefully better equip you to give an answer to people in your life, to your children, to those who might ask you about these questions.